Trading week starts on a shaky note in Asia as investors continue to fear the impact of the coronavirus. So let's bring you more detail about the coronavirus outbreak, because as you've been hearing, firms and factories in China are expected to get back to work this week after an extended spring festival break. But across the country, some factories will remain closed, including car makers, Toyota and Honda. And what happens in China, of course, matters for the global economy. China alone accounts for 39% of global growth. If we give you a sense of scale by looking at energy alone, China is the world's largest oil importer, so global oil consumption has fallen by around 20% since the outbreak began. Now, the spread of the coronavirus could also affect the Phase 1 trade deal the US and China worked out last month. Our Asia business correspondent Karishma Vaswani takes a closer look at what's happening when the world's factory shuts down because of an international health emergency.
From iPhones to T-shirts to even your medicine, China is the factory for the world. More than a third of the world's clothes and shoes are made there. So when factories shut down and people stop going to work, that has an effect on when the rest of us can get our stuff. Looking for a new iPhone or AirPods? Well, almost half of Apple's workshops and factories are in China, making speakers, screens, batteries, you name it. Then there's cars and car parts. Wuhan and the wider Hubei province are major manufacturing centers for the auto sector. It's in lockdown. Everyone from Honda, Nissan to Peugeot, Citroën, they have operations there. And South Korea's Hyundai Auto was the first Asian car maker to suspend production. Analysts say more will follow. Medicines like penicillin and some popular antibiotics are also affected. Indian drug firms that make them get a lot of their key pharmaceutical ingredients from China. We're not running out of medicine yet, but the longer factories stay shut, the bigger the problem. How quickly factories start producing again will depend on how soon migrant workers, the backbone of China's economy, get back to work. The coronavirus is a reminder of just how dependent we are on China and what happens when the world's factory shuts down because of a virus.
That's Karishma Vaswani. Well, let's talk this through with Graham Parker, Chief Executive of Gravity Supply Chain, and joins us from Singapore. Graham, you know, your company is looking and enabling supply chains, as it were. What are you seeing as a consequence of coronavirus?
I mean, it's major disruption on an unprecedented scale that's never been seen before. It's not just the impact of the exports that's coming out, but it's also the impact of what's going into China as well. I mean, it's truly devastating. And I think you also have to feel for the people that are involved in it, the people that have lost their lives in there as well. So it's just the global supply chain is one thing, but the loss of life and the devastation that's going around with it is very sad.
Is it possible at this point to assess what this could mean going forward? Of course, we don't know if this virus has peaked yet. We still are waiting for information and data from the Chinese authorities. But is it possible to assess what impact this could have in the long term?
I think it's impossible to say right here, right now. I mean, some of the factories are opening, some of them aren't opening. Trying to repatriate the workers back to where the factories are. The lockdown of the vessels carrying, the vessels emitting ports. The airlines, obviously, some are still flying, but some aren't. The vast majority have pulled out of China. The impact is huge, it's significant. I think we're looking at a minimum of 6 months before you can even really truly understand the true implication of what this would look like.
So it would have definitely a knock-on effect on growth in China. It's already slowing anyway. Some are projecting we could see a couple of percentage points off Chinese growth in the first half of this year.
I think it's absolutely going to have a bigger and a far greater knock-on effect than people even begin to imagine. Purely because you just don't know when the factories can able to get back to full capacity. You know, they've already extended their holiday by a week. You've got the additional capacity problems now where people are just not able to get back to the factory. So in terms of actually understanding when the factories will be able to get to full capacity, it's pretty much unknown. Like you say, it's unprecedented.
And just talk us through what it means for you doing your job in Singapore. To what extent are you personally impacted, if at all?
We're not really impacted in as much as we provide real-time visibility to supply chain. So we provide to shippers and logistics providers the visibility of where their products and stock is. So obviously what we're doing is we're monitoring the situation with our risk chain. We're able to predict probably about 4 or 5 days before some of the major carriers started to emit in the port. So we're able to help our customers by getting them to move product to regions where the carriers would still continue to fly into and the ships were still port of call. But yeah, we provide the real-time updates and insights as to exactly what's going on in terms of their merchandise and stock positions.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you. Graham Parker, interesting, Chief Executive of Gravity Supply Chain, joining us from Singapore.